Okay, let's dive into this. Just try and picture it for a moment. Pahalgam, Jammu, and Kashmir. It's this incredibly beautiful, serene place, right? Like something out of a postcard.
Absolutely stunning.
Right.
Peaks, valleys, just peaceful.
Until it wasn't. On April 22nd, 2025, that peace was just completely shattered. A terror attack, horrific, 26 lives lost.
It was a terrible, terrible day. And the group claiming it, the Resistance Front, well, the information we've looked at points pretty strongly to them being a front, a proxy for Lashkar-e-Taiba, which has known links to Pakistan.
And this event, tragic as it was, it felt like more than just news. It really seemed to be a catalyst, didn't it? A real wake-up call that triggered a significant shift of India's approach.
Definitely. India's response wasn't just about mourning, though of course there was that.
Right.
It moved quickly towards action.
Which brings us to Operation Sindoor. That happened just a couple of weeks later, May 6th and 7th. And the way it was presented, based on our sources, wasn't tentative at all. It felt like a very forceful statement. Zero tolerance.
Right. The information suggests they targeted 9 specific terror camps. Key hubs, apparently, for groups like Leti at Muridke and Jaish-e-Mohammed at Bahawalpur. It was framed as precise, targeted, and sending a very clear message.
A powerful message. But that military action, Operation Sindoor, was really just one piece of the puzzle, wasn't it?
Exactly. And that's what we really want to unpack today. While the strikes were crucial, what followed was this incredibly extensive diplomatic campaign. India essentially took this tragedy and launched this major global initiative.
A goal being
To basically expose and counter the roots of this terrorism on the world stage and, navigate all the tricky international reactions that come with that. That's our mission for this deep dive.
So, Operation Sindoor, maybe think of it as having two parts. The military side, the kinetic action, you could call it the bombs, and then the strategic diplomatic follow-up, the brains, if you like. It seems India really anticipated Pakistan's reaction.
Predictable playbook, right? Denials, accusations of aggression.
Exactly. So, knowing that was likely coming, India appears to have prepped this whole counter-narrative to get ahead of it, to shape how the world saw things right after the strikes.
And counter-narrative almost undersells it. It was described in some accounts as a diplomatic blitzkrieg, a real offensive. The scale is just, wow.
Tell us about the scale.
Okay, so get this. 7 separate, all-party delegations, not just 1 or 2 diplomats. We're talking 59 members of parliament, former diplomats, a real cross-section.
59 people.
59, fanning out across the globe, hitting 33 capitals. Think about the coordination involved. This wasn't just business as usual. It was a massive concerted push to take India's case directly to the world.
And who was involved? Any names stand out?
Oh, yeah. Some prominent figures. Shashi Tharoor obviously brings a lot of international credibility. Asaduddin Owaisi, a powerful voice. Kanamozi Karunanidhi from the DMK was involved too.
And didn't she have a quote that went kind of viral?
That's right. She apparently said unity in diversity is India's national language. It was this mix of, highlighting India's fundamental values while on this very serious security mission. It seemed to really resonate.
So what was the core message these delegations were carrying? And crucially, what were they showing people?
They weren't just talking, they were presenting evidence. According to the sources, they laid out what they claimed was proof of Pakistan's support for terror groups.
Like what kind of proof?
Well, really interesting stuff. Intercepted communications, for example, that reportedly showed panic within Pakistan's military circles during Operation Sindoor.
Wow, okay. That's specific.
Exactly. Suggesting the targets were hit and it caused real disruption. They also presented maps, timelines, basically building this detailed picture to argue that Pakistan was, as one source put it, running a terror factory. The aim was to leave little doubt about alleged state links.
Okay, so India launches this huge diplomatic push armed with evidence. How did the world respond? You mentioned complex reactions earlier.
Yeah, it really was a mixed bag, as you'd probably expect. Some countries came out with very strong support, which was significant. Others were more hesitant, maybe cautious. And then there were instances that looked, well, like a definite cold shoulder.
Let's break that down. Who offered strong support?
The UAE was a really key one. On May 22nd, a senior figure there, Ali Rashid Al Nuaimi, apparently met with an Indian delegation and stated very clearly that the UAE stands firmly with India.
And why is the UAE's support so significant?
Well, they're a major player in the Islamic world. Getting that kind of explicit backing from Abu Dhabi helps counter narratives that might try to frame India's actions negatively within Muslim-majority countries. It adds a lot of weight.
Okay, who else?
Japan was another interesting case. Their foreign minister, Takeshi Iwaya, was quoted praising India's restraint.
Restraint after hitting 9 camps.
I know, right? But that suggests Japan saw the operation as precise, perhaps minimizing collateral damage, which validates India's description of it. We also saw reports mentioning support from former PM Suga and former Defense Minister Kihara, also praising the precision. And Japan's been pushing for UN accountability for terror sponsors anyway, so it'll align with their stance.
What about closer to home, the Maldives? Relations have been a bit rocky there recently.
That's what made their support notable. Despite recent tensions, their foreign minister, Abdullah Khalil, visited Delhi on May 26th, condemned the Pahalgam attack, and backed India's position. It shows that on this core issue of terrorism, India could still find common ground even where bilateral ties were strained.
Any other major powers? The UK?
Yes, the UK's Indo-Pacific Minister, Catherine West, also condemned the attack around early June. And generally, the UK has acknowledged India's role in global security. Having a P5 nation voice support, even if general, is always helpful diplomatically.
And you mentioned multilateral forums, BRICS?
Yes, the BRICS Parliamentary Forum in Brasilia. That seems to have been a big success for India's diplomacy. The report suggests they achieved unanimous agreement on India's zero-tolerance stance in the final declaration.
Unanimous, with all those different countries, Russia, China, Brazil.
Exactly. Getting all 10 members on board with that language was quite a diplomatic achievement. And apparently, Russia even gave India a specific platform during the forum to detail the alleged Pakistan links. So really leveraging those multilateral spaces.
Okay, so significant support from various quarters. But it wasn't universal. Let's talk about the friction, the colder responses. Canada comes to mind.
Right. Canada was probably the most prominent example of a difficult reaction. According to the materials we reviewed, Prime Minister Modi reportedly wasn't invited to the G7 summit hosted by Canada and Alberta in June 2025.
And the connection was made too?
It was widely linked back to the ongoing diplomatic tensions stemming from the Hardeep Singh Nijjar killing in 2023. It really highlights how these bilateral issues can complicate efforts, even on something like counterterrorism, where you might expect broader alignment.
Any other bumps?
There was that situation with Colombia. Initially, they put out a statement mentioning civilian deaths related to Operation Sindoor, which obviously plays into a narrative India was trying to counter.
But that didn't stick.
No. Crucially, that statement was withdrawn on May 31st. Which suggests that maybe behind the scenes, India's diplomatic teams engaged with them, presented their side, clarified the situation, and got them to retract it. Shows the quiet work can pay off.
Well, India's doing all this. What about Pakistan? Were they just sitting back?
No, they weren't passive. They apparently tried to mount their own counter-diplomacy, sending out their own delegations. But based on the accounts we saw, their efforts were largely described as ineffective.
Why ineffective?
It seems they lacked the same scale, maybe the coordination, and perhaps crucially, the kind of specific evidence India was putting forward. Their narrative just didn't seem to gain the same traction compared to India's apparently well-prepared push.
And Pakistan holds some key UN positions related to terrorism, right? That must have been awkward.
Extremely awkward, yes. Chairing the Taliban Sanctions Committee and the Counterterrorism Committee, one source literally used the analogy, giving the fox the keys to the henhouse.
So how did India handle that? You can't exactly ignore it.
They didn't. They reportedly focused their lobbying efforts on other members of the UN Security Council, specifically not engaging Pakistan, China, or Somalia. On this, it seems, trying to counter Pakistan's influence from within those committees and keep the pressure on.
Did it work? What about the official UN response to Pahalgam?
The Security Council statement on the attack was apparently quite watered down. So, a bit frustrating for India, clearly, but it didn't seem to derail their overall diplomatic strategy. They kept pushing on other fronts.
And there was that incident with Pakistan's foreign minister, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, at the UN.
Oh, right. That was quite a moment, based on the reporting. He was at a press briefing on June 4th, accusing India of demonizing Muslims, standard rhetoric. But then a journalist called him out, pointed out that Colonel Sophia Qureshi, a Muslim officer in the Indian Army, was actually leading the public briefings about Operation Sindoor.
Ouch.
Yeah. Apparently, it caught him completely off guard. He kind of stumbled and had to admit, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It just punctured that particular line of attack very publicly, a moment of visible fluster.
So all these efforts, the military action, the diplomatic surge, countering the narrative, what's the bigger picture here? What's India trying to establish?
It looks like they're trying to set what's being called a new normal.
Yeah.
It's not just about responding after the fact, it's about establishing a baseline. Zero tolerance for terrorism, full stop, and drawing a very clear red line against these non-state actors and, crucially, the infrastructure that supports them.
And who articulated this?
India's Chief of Defense Staff General Anil Chauhan. He laid it out quite explicitly at the Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore, a major international security conference.
Seeing it there sends a message, doesn't it?
A huge message. Having your top military commander state this at that kind of forum signals it's not just political talk. It's integrated into military thinking, into doctrine. And apparently it got noticed. Reports mention reactions from Malaysia's PM Anwar Ibrahim, other ASEAN leaders. They heard it.
And is this connected to India boosting its own military tech?
Absolutely. General Chauhan also apparently highlighted India's progress in things like unmanned systems, drones, homegrown technology. It feeds directly into the new normal.
Yeah.
If you're going to enforce a red line, you need the capability to do it effectively and ideally independently. Developing indigenous tech strengthens that posture.
Now, this fight isn't just physical or diplomatic anymore, is it? There's a whole digital front.
Oh, definitely. A major battlefield now. And the sources paint a picture of Pakistan allegedly using a range of tactics in this space. We're talking deepfakes to create false narratives, using encrypted apps to radicalize people, drone drops not just of weapons, but drugs too, apparently.
And AI-generated propaganda.
Yes, using AI to churn out misinformation or inflammatory content at scale. It's sophisticated modern information warfare aimed at destabilizing things, creating confusion, undermining trust.
So how does India fight back against that? It's not just about firewalls, is it?
No, it's much broader. Of course, there's the technical cybersecurity side, but a big focus seems to be on building societal resilience. Things like promoting digital literacy so people are better equipped to spot fake news, encouraging civic engagement to strengthen social cohesion against divisive narratives, and crucially, actively building and promoting India's own narrative in the digital space. It's a constant battle for hearts and minds online.
Taking a step back then, what's the global significance of all this? Why should someone outside the region care?
Well, it highlights a broader trend. The sources suggest Pakistan's alleged reliance on these non-kinetic tools, psyops, proxies, info-war, might be linked to its own internal pressures like economic difficulties. These methods can seem cheaper and more deniable than conventional conflict.
So it's a model others might copy.
Potentially. And that makes the international response really important. Things like the scrutiny from the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force, which monitors terror financing, and the kind of sustained diplomatic pressure India is applying, they aim to raise the costs and limit the space for states to allegedly use these tactics with impunity. It's a global issue.
And throughout this whole diplomatic push, there was another element working alongside the official delegations, wasn't there? The diaspora.
Yes. Described in the sources as the secret sauce, or a force multiplier. The Indian diaspora globally. They weren't just watching, they were actively involved.
How so? What were they doing?
Mobilizing. Protesting, like that demonstration outside the Pakistan High Commission in London soon after the Pahalgam attack. Remember that reported incident with the Pakistani diplomat making a threatening gesture?
Right, that caused a stir.
Exactly. The diaspora reportedly amplified incidents like that, engaged local media, contacted politicians, briefed think tanks, used social media. They were working in parallel with the official delegations to sensitize public opinion and shape the narrative in key countries like the UK, pushing for policy shifts. It's like having this distributed network advocating for India's position.
So, wrapping this up, what's the outlook now? Where do things go from here, based on what we've seen?
Well, the diplomatic push seems set to continue. Prime Minister Modi is expected to meet with those returning delegations soon, likely June 9th or 10th, for debriefs and planning next steps.
Consolidating the gains, perhaps?
Seems like it. There's talk of a white paper being prepared to formally document the diplomatic campaign's successes and the evidence presented. And External Affairs Minister Jay Shankar is expected to keep driving this strategy forward.
And the goals remain the same.
Pretty much. Keep the international pressure on Pakistan, build that global coalition against terror and its sponsors, and really cement this new normal zero-tolerance policy. But as we discussed, the challenges are still there.
Like Pakistan's UN roles, the Canada situation, the ongoing digital battle?
Exactly. It's definitely, as one source aptly put it, a marathon, not a sprint. Continuous effort required.
So, for you listening, we've traced quite a journey today. From that horrific moment in Pahalgam through the military response of Operation Sindoor, and then deep into this really quite remarkable large-scale diplomatic offensive India launched.
And what we see emerging from all the material is this picture of India trying to fundamentally shift how it deals with terrorism, moving from just reacting to proactively shaping the international environment and demanding accountability. Though, clearly, the world's reaction is varied.
It really does feel like India is determined to set a new precedent, drawing that red line and asserting its right to act, even if it means navigating some pretty choppy international waters.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to consider. As India pursues this more assertive policy and faces this complex mix of global support and resistance, what does it signal for the future of counterterrorism cooperation worldwide? Especially now, when so much of the conflict plays out digitally and narratives are as important as actions on the ground. Something to think about.